Hello from Lucca, Italy. I'm here on work, if you can believe it. I had a few people ask me questions about this, and I figure enough time has passed, and I thought I would tell my Cody Rhodes story. So, Cody hit me up on Instagram a number of years ago, before he left the WWE, to basically say, like, I know it's hard to grow up in the shadow of a legendary figure, and I think you're doing great. And at the time, Cody had been part of Legacy. He'd been dashing Cody Rhodes. He'd been undashing Cody Rhodes. Now he was Stardust, and I was always a massive fan of his, and I always thought he had it. And I always loved Cody Rhodes. So after I made Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, I ended up being hired briefly by the WWE as a consultant. They didn't really listen to anything I said, and Lord knows I made a bad impression on Seth Rollins and a good impression on a few other people. But when I was brought backstage, I was starstruck. I was blown away. It's hard. I grew up around the industry in some ways, so it's rare I get really thrown by a celebrity or a performer. But Cody Rhodes and Triple H and fucking Gold Dust and Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks. I was meeting these people and I was blown away because wrestlers to me, they're the highest level of performance artists. I have such a deep ingrained respect for them that it's almost hard for me to interact with them. I go ooh, hello, you're a writer and an actor and a stuntman and a clown and a fucking storyteller. You're everything. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm just a writer. So for me, meeting wrestlers is really exciting. But I met Cody Rhodes. And when I met him backstage, and I met him and he was fully in the Stardust gimmick with the shoulder pads and the whole deal. And he was with Brandy. And I had once sat with Brandy and Renee Young, but really more Renee Young and Big E backstage and catering watching the show. And so I was like, oh, Cody, oh my God, nice to meet you. And he looked miserable. I don't think he'd be mad, me saying this, but he looked like he was not happy. And you could read it on him. He was clearly in the character and in it and committed. And I remember saying to him, it was the top of my career at that point, 2015, 2016. That was when I was doing the best, numbers-wise, reputation-wise, everything-wise. And I just felt so blessed to be backstage at my favorite show, right? So I met Cody and I remember saying to him, this isn't it. You're going to go so much further than this. And we had this weird interaction because it was really just hey, nice to meet you. Remember the Instagram message we sent? But he looked upset, not upset, but down. And so I was you're so great. I believe in you so much. This is only the beginning of something huge. But in a million years, I would have never guessed where his career and my career and his public life and my public life would take us in the next 9 years. And now I look back on it and it's such an interesting inflection point because it's not what I said to Cody Rhodes inspired him. Barely what I said to him was just, you're so much bigger than this. Maybe he remembers this. I wonder if he remembers this. But you're so much bigger than this. You can go so much further and you're going to be okay. And he was like, oh, thank you. Hey, I appreciate your work and I appreciate what you're doing. And he was a really good guy to me. Even in the gimmick, he was Stardust. I've never met Cody Rhodes. I just talked to Stardust. And I was with my girlfriend at the time who was looking at me because everyone I'd meet backstage at Raw, I was like, oh, hello, what a pleasure to meet you. I'm so honored because I'm a fan. And so it's interesting because what I was thinking about looking at the WWE right now, who are the top draws in the WWE right now? Cody, Roman, and then who gets the biggest crowd reaction? Probably Dominic Mysterio. And not to quote the Spin Doctors, but these are three princes. These are three Nepo babies. I hate when people fucking use that term. Because if you grew up in something and your whole life was about that, and that's what mommy and daddy cared about more than anything, of course you want to do it. Well, of course you try to do it. And I'll tell you something from the inside, 99% of Nepo babies fail. They fail. And not in the hits my career has taken. My career has taken hits not based on my talent or ability, but based on my personal life and the way people feel about me as a human being. That's why it's so inspiring to see someone like Dominic Mysterio, to see someone like Roman Reigns, to see someone like motherfucking Cody Rhodes. A guy who took every risk on himself and used his name to build his own empire. Wrestling has more than one royal family, you're goddamn right. Although I would argue it doesn't even have one. Talk to Curtis Axel about royal families. I would say all of Cody Rhodes' success. I mean, like, I'll give 5% of it to Dusty and the family. But I would say all of what's happening now goes right back to Cody Rhodes. And I'm just in awe of him and in awe of his achievements. And I'm so happy he's the number one guy. And weirdly, I've been asked about this a lot. Otherwise, I wouldn't address it. You know, I don't make YouTube videos every day anymore. But I thought that was an interesting story.